moves right to the first.
Good evening and welcome to the St. Croix County Community Development Committee meeting, December 14. We'll do a little roll call and have everybody introduce themselves and say who they represent. Start with Sean.
Sean Anderson, I represent District 2.
Jerry Van Zomeren, District 18.
Scott Counter, Supervisor, District 11.
I'm Dan Hansen and I represent District 12, which is part of New Richmond, and would ask you guys to introduce yourselves too, please.
Jason Cheesit, Community Development Director.
I'm Ken Witt, County Administrator.
John Hilger, Senior Planner.
Julie Peterson, Community Development.
Excellent. I did talk to Ryan Shirley. He's on his way. He's going to be a little bit late. As far as the minutes go from the last meeting, does anybody have any corrections or suggestions or heartburn? All right. With no objections, we'll let the minutes stand as approved. Public comment. Does anybody have anything other than concerning the public hearings, public comments of anything that's on or off the agenda that they'd like to talk about? Going once, going twice. Anybody like to talk about anything that's on or off the agenda for public comment? All right, no public comment. We're going to start with public hearing, which was left open during the last county community development committee meeting. This is a continuation of the hearing to rezone for Grandbourne in town of Star Prairie. And I'll let Jason take this and give us an introduction.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members of the board, thank you. We originally opened this hearing at your last CDC meeting. At that meeting, it was determined and that to table the action on this request because at that time we had not heard from the town of Star Prairie. Since that meeting, we did receive approval from the town of Star Prairie for this rezone request. However, just on Tuesday night, I received a call from the mayor of New Richmond, and it appears that the city has not had much time to review the request, and they've got some concerns in regards to water out there. And so the mayor asked for the committee's consideration of tabling this request for another month to take and give them time to review the request.
All right, I respect that, and I'll add to that I spoke with Jim Zukowski, the mayor of New Richmond also, as well as I spoke to Gary Knudsen, the town chair in Richmond, and I talked to Dick Hesselink, who's on the Stanton Town Board. However, this public hearing is open to the public, and I would like to give everybody here who would like to speak during the public hearing a chance to speak. So if there's anybody who signed our sign-in and would like to say their piece, a chance to talk, you're welcome to indicate that, walk up to our podium, say who you are, where you live, and give you a chance to talk.
Hi, my name is Janet D'Ambrosio. I live at 2022 100th Street, Somerset, in the township of Star Prairie. I too have concerns about the water with the development, so I'll just add that piece now before I forget about it. I want to thank the committee for their patience as this is my first kind of dive into the rezoning issues and how it works, so it's a steep learning curve. And I also want to thank the chairman for the November meeting for advocating, that the meeting be continued and open. I was not aware that it was open. Again, it's a learning curve that I have, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm going to address some pages or references in the packet. I don't know if that's helpful to the audience or if that page could be brought up. But on page 18 of the packet, it gives a map of the environmental corridor. It's a large area of land. From what I can see, page 18. Thank you. And I'm hoping at some point the committee could explain what are the protections for a large area that is an environmental corridor on the Apple River. In addition to that, it goes on to page 19, showing kind of geographical landforms. There is one area that's a closed depression, which I had no idea what it was, but upon doing a little research, discovered that they are considered extremely sensitive land features because they're so close to the groundwater. I'm sure the board's aware of that, but I wasn't. And so, therefore, the release of pollutants into any closed depression is almost certain to reach groundwater immediately. And I got that information off the DNR website, so I'm going to take it as accurate. So I do have a concern about that, and that goes back to the groundwater situation as I understand it. There's also some very steep slopes in the area, differences in elevation, and I don't know how that does impact, or if that has a larger impact on the closed depression. But again, I'm hoping that the committee will address that at some point. I looked at the application date from the developer for this rezoning, and it's dated September 28th. And in the packet on page 27, number 3, it indicates that the developer had a meeting with the town and they thought this property was suited for the proposed use and were in agreement that a rezone to R2 would be appropriate. That was before the September 29th meeting, before the November meeting, and the December meeting. I am concerned that, well, from reading that, it appears that the developer believed the board agreed to that. And it's like, where does our input come in? And when I say our, I mean residents. When is our input heard if this decision was already kind of, looks like it was already made? And maybe I'm misinterpreting that, I don't know. But I'm hoping the committee could answer that for me. I'd like to go on to the letter I wrote today, and I'm going to really try to be brief in this, again, because I want to respect the board's time, or the committee's time. I'm sorry, I'm going to use those words probably incorrectly, the committee's time. In regards to the 160-acre parcel in Star Prairie Township under rezoning to R2, I have some objections based on the following reasons. And I've taken this right from the packet, which in part takes information, as I understand it, from the township's comprehensive plan. On page 16 of the packet, there is reference to official zoning maps, and they're required to be consistent with local government units' comprehensive plan per a Wisconsin state statute. The Town of Star Prairie Comprehensive Plan shows future land use from the 2010 Comprehensive Plan, designates the majority of the subject parcel, sorry, I don't have that up there, as agricultural forestry with a small portion of the property along the Apple River. That would be page, I think, 15. Thank you, I appreciate that. So if that's in the comprehensive plan as agricultural forestry and some open space, and it's still a current comprehensive plan, I'm not really understanding how we can rezone. It further states that agricultural forestry in the map on page 16 is characterized by large-scale agricultural operations, hobby, small-scale farms, low-density, small-lot rural development that is compatible with agricultural activity and that does not negatively impact prime farmland, environmental areas, drainage areas, or waterways. Most of this land should be zoned exclusive ag with a limited amount of infill with ag residential or ag 2. I don't understand how the proposal tonight to rezone that whole entire 160 acres meets the language of the comprehensive plan, which, as I understand it, says limited amount of infilled development. That doesn't appear to be limited. If I go on to page 17, the future land use map from the county comprehensive plan, which is dated from 2012 to 2035, designates the subject parcel as agricultural. The primary intent of agricultural areas is to preserve productive agricultural lands, promote further investments of farming, and maintain farmer eligibility for incentive programs. And then it goes on to say the preferred housing unit density for this area is either 1 per 20 acres or 1 unit per 40 acres and corresponds to AG1 or AG2 zoning districts. Land in this category can also be zoned ag, residential, R1 or R2. So yes, it does state that it could go to R2, but it seems to me that going from that preferred lower density of 1 house per 10 acres, which it currently is, to R2, averaging 1 house per every 2 acres, is an awfully big leap. The concept map offered by the developer indicates the possibility of 55 houses if rezoned. The simple fact that this design has been offered by the developer in this rezoning request indicates to me future intent. Regardless of the fact that residents have been told this meeting is only about rezoning. We've been told that very often. However, it just appears that the stakes are higher because this is the reason that the committee's looking at this, the town board looked at this, because the developer put this proposal out there. So it does raise concerns about some rather, as I see it, dense population. Under the technical review findings on page 22 of the packet, the proposed use change in zoning districts says will maintain the town's rural character and preserve its agricultural heritage while allowing moderate residential, commercial, and industrial development. Goes on to say in number 2, manage and control the rate of development to maintain a distinctive rural community in the town of Star Prairie. I'm not really sure what technical review findings are or where they originate from, but I'm just looking at that as a citizen. Rezoning to R2 with a minimum lot size of 2 acres doesn't appear to me to be moderate development, nor controlling the rate of development to maintain a rural community. And I've discovered something all along in this process that, and this word's been kind of used a lot, according to our interpretation. And I realize our interpretations are going to vary. But again, moderate development to me just doesn't seem like 55 homes on that parcel. Under the applicable statutes on page 22 of the packet, it states the rezoning and proposed use is consistent with the town of Star Prairie and St. Croix County comprehensive plans. Well, there again, that was the town board's interpretation of the comprehensive plan, but it really was not the interpretation of the dozens of township residents who attended the meeting in November. The room was filled with residents who had concerns about the development. Unfortunately, many residents left that night thinking that was the end of it. The town board plan committee or commission voted to approve rezoning, so I think people just thought that's the end of it. Come to discover that doesn't have to be the end of it. I'm just really asking the development committee tonight to consider the residents' interpretation of that plan. And we, I better just stick to me. I don't interpret the proposal and the rezoning as moderate. It also stated on number 6, the rezoning and proposed use is consistent with surrounding land uses. That was on page 23 of the packet. I do disagree with that. Is there a map on that page? Page 23? I have the wrong one, maybe. It's a future land use map. And I find that finding, that rezoning is consistent with surrounding land use. I kind of feel like that's a half-truth. It's true that some of the land has been developed in R2 with average of 6-acre lots in a lot of it. But if you look to the south, and I think I got my directions mixed up, I think it should be southeast on that map, it does show that that land is not zoned R2. So that's why I'm kind of considering it a half-truth. I'm sorry, that's page 17. Maybe that would be helpful if folks could see it. It's this land down here, this mixed rural residential. It is not, as I'm reading the map and interpreting the map, R2. Rezoning the parcel under discussion, to me, sets a precedent for a more major development. And I would question the committee, is that the intent of the committee? I hope it isn't. Under staff recommendations on page 23, and again, I'm assuming staff recommendations come from a lot of research by the staff looking at how does this fit with the rezoning fit. And the staff recommends approval for rezoning from R1 to R2 based on the following findings of fact. That's how it is stated. Based on the technical review findings, the rezoning is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. Again, I think that's an interpretation or an opinion of the plan. It is not a fact. We can interpret that in many ways, as we're discovering. Again, I would ask the committee to reconsider the views of the residents who will be impacted by a rezoning decision. And number 2, it goes on to say the town of Star Prairie and St. Croix County comprehensive plans include future land use map designations and future land use designation descriptions that support the rezoning change from R1 residential zoning district to R2 residential zoning district. Again, I see that as an opinion at best. The map clearly, that future land use clearly identifies from 2012 to 2035. That's 12, well, I'll give you 11 years down the road. It's identified as agriculture land, as I see it. So that future land use map doesn't indicate rezoning. If we are being true to what the Wisconsin statutes say about comprehensive plans, guide the development of a county or a township. The town, number 3, my last point, the town board of Star Prairie has recommended approval. That's true. The town board of Star Prairie did recommend the approval. However, the residents living in that impacted area did not. I'm just asking the development committee to consider the township's residents' interpretation of the comprehensive plan. And I do trust that the members are willing to do this. So I want to thank you for your time and your patience with my nervousness. I just appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your diligence. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
My name is Susan Stepka. I live at 994 198th Avenue. Janet said a lot of the things I was thinking of too, but just a couple things. So first comment, this is the worst month of the year to have a comment section when you want to do research about it. But when I was here last month for this meeting and they tabled this issue, I also am just learning about how everything works, what's the procedures, that kind of thing. But I guess that I know that you have to give 2 weeks of notice in the newspaper before a public hearing, but I assume that that was not the case for this one because it had already been done in November. Okay. So also, similar to what Janet said, the Star Prairie Comprehensive Plan, and that's packet page 15, subject parcel is agriculture forestry. And there is also a language summary of that, so I assume that's like a definition. The existing primary use in the town that will continue to occupy a significant part of the landscape. Existing ag lands and existing farms. So this 160 acres is an existing agricultural land. It's been worked as farmland for the 28 years that I've been there. So most of the land should be zoned exclusive ag with a limited amount infilled with ag residential, R1 or R2, or ag 2. The town board has concluded the rezoning request aligns with the aforementioned criteria for infill. And sometimes I wonder if definitions and interpretations are where people have issues. So later on, and Janet mentioned this as well, the moderate amount, allowing moderate amount of residential developments. Is moderate the same as limited infill? And then I just think that on page 22, the proposed change in zoning district will include a desirable mix of land uses that will maintain the town's rural character and preserve its agricultural heritage. So again, definition of maintain and preserve, and how much of our farmland do we make into developments before we say, oh, we haven't preserved our agricultural heritage. And maybe heritage is the word with the definition. Do we just remember that this used to be a farming area? Or anyway, manage and control the rate of development to maintain a distinctive rural community in the town. Certainly there is something to be said for trying to plan for the development that we know is coming. I just think that if the lots could be bigger, that it might help to do that. I think it's unfortunate that R1 is one house per 10 acres, and R2 is one house per 1.5 acres, because it sure seems like the sweet spot is in the middle there somewhere. And the people that I've talked to who live currently in the country living plot, many of them grew up on farms, or they grew up on hobby farms, and this is the environment that they like and want to live in. And to me, 55 new houses, average of 2 acres per lot, just seems like a whole lot of infill. So I think that's all I have. Thank you very much for letting me address the group.
Thanks for taking the time to come. Anybody else? Would anybody else like to speak on the subject? That being the case, I'm going to close this public hearing, and we're going to take one more. John? Mr. Chair. Yes.
I'm not sure if your intention is to close the public hearing tonight, especially if there were some communications from the city of New Richmond about them wanting a little bit more time to provide input. on this application, so perhaps the committee might want to consider holding this hearing open again to next month to a date and time certain. So if that's going to be your next committee meeting, that would be January 18th at 5 o'clock.
That's a good point, and thank you. I was going to, perhaps I'll ask the county administrator what's the best course of action at this moment.
I concur with John. I think if you were looking for additional input from the city, hold the public hearing open again another month.
I didn't, yeah, and I was thinking we would
Yep.
table it, close the public hearing and table it, but the best course would be to leave the public hearing open while we do that. That being the case, my conversation with the mayor was that they may need 2 months to prepare their response to the development of this land and to prepare what they need to do as a responsible group of responsible parties. So I would like to take this back up in February. I would suggest that's
Yeah,
the
you
best
can
course.
postpone it to a date specific, so you would say when you'll take the next testimony. So if it'll be at the February meeting, then that's what you would want to state tonight then. I think Sean has something to add.
Sean?
Can I ask why the city needs 2 months to review this when we've already spent, first time we reviewed it was a month ago? Like,
This,
I feel
I'll
like-
explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, this property sits at the edge, the outer, very outer edge of landfill, the contamination area from a landfill. The responsible parties include several townships and school district who will be responsible if the wells in this area are contaminated, and they need to be involved with whatever they need to do. And we're not going to dictate or even anticipate anything other than saying that. They want to look at this and talk about it, talk to their hydrologist, their lawyer, whatever. And we want to talk to the county lawyer, and we just want to set this aside and leave it open. So I'd suggest to the committee that they consider voting to do that at this moment in time.
Yeah, that background makes it make a lot more sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
So I'm Al Whitstock. I'm one of the partners in the development, possible development. I'm just finding this out tonight myself too. Heard a little bit about it today possibly, but I'm just wondering where that contaminated area is, and it's my understanding that that area has been cleaned up and is all the wells, the test wells and stuff have been testing correctly. That's my understanding. I guess I don't know that. But if someone here does, I just want to see why. Again, that question was perfect. Why would it take so long to figure that out? There is a well on that site that I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe it's used 19 million gallons or something per year. Doug, do you remember that number? So I would guess that should be able to be tested and probably tested pretty quickly. So that's would be my question there.
We're not, because this is the holiday season, because we don't have a hydrologist sitting here, because we don't want to speculate on technical matters.
Okay.
And because we're wanting to do this right.
Yep.
We
Yep.
want to take the time to do this right, and we don't want to have, the mission, the core primary mission of the county is to protect the health, the welfare, and the safety of the people
Understood.
who live here.
Yep.
And err on the side of that, health, safety, and welfare. And,
Okay.
and primarily, that's the very first thing. And I recognize that your mission is the market. And I don't want to slow you down. I
Yep.
don't want to impose on anybody. But right now, the health, safety, and welfare of the people who live in St. Croix County are my primary responsibility.
Yep. And
So-
I guess I want to be clear by asking the questions. I do want the due diligence done correctly, because we're going to invest a lot of money into this and potentially be on the hook for contaminated water. So I understand that. And I just want to comment on one of Janet's comments on the early meetings. You know, we definitely did inquire with the township. And the reason for that is to find out if, is this possible to go from R1 to R2? I brought a subdivision map to the table, knowing I didn't have to do that, and we probably wouldn't even have anybody here. So I do respect the fact that it's being looked at and we're doing the due diligence. I just, of course, we wanna move forward, right? It seems like the right place. Yeah, and then I guess other than that, there is verbiage on page 96 that says the area south of County Road C and in the comprehensive plan, the area of the town south of County Road C and 210th Avenue should be the first area developed and is where the town should encourage development to locate. We meet that parameter. So just all points taken in on the comprehensive plan, right? So.
I recognize everybody's frustration.
Yep.
And I recognize that development is market-driven. I recognize that we need to develop our county and that we are a heritage, that we are a urban driven also, that we need to accommodate people. We've been agricultural throughout our history, and we built a new bridge. Things are going to happen. We have growing pains. And it's very hard for all of us to face this. So I welcome and thank everybody for their patience. And it's just going to take a couple of months to sift this, and then we will all know where the safest, best course of action lies. And that is my final thought on this. Now I'll ask the committee for theirs. Thank you.
Fair. Thank you.
I'm afraid once you've sat back down, once you've said your piece, I would ask you to not. Gentlemen? I would ask for a motion to continue the.
Yes, under advice both from the legal staff at the county and the request from the city of New Richmond that we would postpone to a date of February 15th at 5 p.m. for continuation of this public hearing.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until the February meeting. Any further discussion from the committee? No. Shall we have a vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed, same sign. It's a unanimous vote. At this time, this public hearing is continued until the February meeting of this committee. Thank you, everybody, for your forbearance. Now we are going to open the next public hearing, which is the Lineham request for rezoning Town of Eau Gallie. And John will give us the presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Under typical circumstances, in the prior discussion we had, we would have walked through the staff report to kind of explain the rationale and the findings, but we will certainly do that on February 15th. But again, we will provide the details and the rationale for the recommendation we did make up until this date, unless we get new information. So this public hearing is an application from Steve and Jason Lineham in the town of Eau Gallie. We're at 149 250th Street. The purpose of the rezoning is to rectify an encroachment issue. However, in doing so, because the two properties are zoned differently, they're before you tonight with the rezoning application. Again, the total acres involved, as you see, are very small, and we'll kind of walk through the different areas. As you can see, 250th Street running north-south. Parcel A, which is labeled in blue, is proposed to be rezoned from R1 to R2, and the area in purple would go from R2 to R1. If you look on your packet, you can see an existing shed right here that kind of encroaches into the existing area that includes Area B. So that is the purpose for the switching of the properties. Again, we're kind of in the southern part of the county in O'Galley, northwest of Spring Valley, south of I-94 and County Road N. Aerial photo that shows the property, primarily scattered woodlands. We have scattered home sites and then agricultural uses in the area. Again, existing zoning, we can show you that R1 to R2, R2 to R1 respectively. Next, we take a look at the Town of O'Galley Comprehensive Plan. Per statute, rezoning changes must be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. So as you can see here, the subject property is an area labeled white under the Town of O'Galley plan. And again, this is not the zoning, but what the Town of O'Galley is saying in their comp plan is that they would support in this area a range of zoning from Ag 1 to Ag 2 to R1 to R2, and even some C2, which represents some of our ag entertainment uses. So again, some of the town's comprehensive plans, like Star Prairie, do have some very general policies and direction, which is important to get the town's perspective and how they interpret their own plan. Next, we take a look at the county comprehensive plan, and likewise, we kind of show this in an area that's designated for future agriculture. The primary intent of the mixed rural agricultural area is to preserve productive agricultural lands while allowing some residential development. The request for the R1 and R2 zoning districts would be consistent with the St. Croix County Future Land Use Plan. Again, our plan, like the town's, and we try and reflect the town's vision, the county plan would support Ag 1, Ag 2, R1, or R2. Talking a little bit about the environmental corridors, all that simply is a description within our comp plan that designates the general area. And this environmental corridor is highlighted by larger tracts of woodlands in the area that we just showed you. The parcel does not include any shoreland, floodplain, or wetland areas. This map shows some steep slopes that are indicated by the darker brown shade. However, as part of this rezoning application, they are not intending on, doing any building. Again, it's just a simple exchange of property. So again, this just shows the steep slopes, but there would be no impact because there is nothing being proposed building-wise. We also take a look at the town review. The Town of O'Galley met recently to review this application. And the town board did recommend approval at their December 11th, 2023 meeting. They cited that as far as policies go, that it would create a balance between residential and commercial growth and ag production, promote economic growth, but retain the rural character of the town. Other criteria is that the request not be inconsistent with the natural resource management plan and that it could comply with Chapter 15 zoning. Taking a look at some of the applicable statutes and criteria, the rezoning and proposed use is consistent with the St. Croix County Comp Plan and Town Comprehensive Plan. Not only the land use map, but the category descriptions and the narrative within the comp plan. That the rezoning can comply with the Natural Resource Plan and is consistent with St. Croix County zoning. Another criteria for the committee to consider is that the town has not disapproved the request, and that's the case here. They recommended approval. And that the rezoning and proposed use is consistent with the comp plan, does not result in spot zoning. Three options for you tonight: recommend approval, recommend disapproval, or table for additional information. Staff recommendation is that based on the application submittal, staff recommends approval of the two zoning changes from R1 to R2 and R2 to R1 respectively, based on the technical review findings 1 through 4 we just reviewed, the fact that the future land use plan maps and future land use categories within both the comprehensive plans of the town and county support the rezoning request. The town of O'Galley has recommended approval of the rezoning request, and that the proposed use is consistent with and can comply with standards in Chapter 15. That concludes the overview, and then as of 4:30 today, we have not received any public comments with respect to this hearing.
Thanks, John. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak for or against this? Susan, you're not invested in this one? Okay. I will close this public hearing. Committee, do we have any questions for John? All right, can we get a motion?
I make a motion that we amend the comprehensive plan, switching R1 to R2 and R2 to R1. It really, it's just to straighten out where the building lies and should have no effect on anything else in the county. That'd be my motion.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we get that, Julie? Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is unanimous, and it feels good. We're moving on to business item number 3, discussion of metropolitan planning organizations, MPOs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This agenda item was a follow-up to when the committee considered the transportation chapter amendments of the comprehensive plan draft. And at that time, the committee had asked us as staff to dig into some of the benefits of an MPO. And so Nicole and John started that effort by reaching out to Eric Anderson with the West Central Regional Planning Commission. His email is in your packet, and I'll go over that a little bit later. John also did some research or background on MPOs for you here. So think of MPOs as a major collaboration group and a planning group to take and work with different municipalities and the county, for example, in identifying the transportation needs, the priorities, and the goals for their area. It's mainly federally funded. And generally, the funds are an 80-20 cost share and that for these programs. Most of those funds, though, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm wrong on the 80-20, but the funds are through federal and state. So there's 80-20. 80% comes from federal, 20% comes from the state, and I'm having a hard time scrolling down here. So again, it's a multi-jurisdictional approach, and that to involve all parties. There's usually a large public involvement aspect of an MPO, so that everybody is aware of what's going on. As we've been kind of learning with our TAP grants, there is compliance requirements with the federal regulations underneath the Transportation Equity Act. There's a lot of data collection and analysis that's done by an MPO group. They look to enhance and make efficient transportation systems by being able to look at the big picture versus looking at just their individual area. And also with that comes, that efficient transportation, and so that's more environmentally friendly. And the prioritization of projects and that within the area, maybe due to growth and safety and congestion relief. MPOs would typically work with the Federal Highway Administration to receive funding. MPOs would also develop a transportation improvement program, which is a short-range program that identifies projects to be implemented over a specified period of time. Sorry. And then a surface transportation block grant, which is a flexible funding source that provides additional federal funds for various projects. Tying in with the environmental aspects above, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, CMAQ, and that can receive additional funding to help with projects that improve air quality, reduce smog, and alleviate traffic congestion. And then the Highway Safety Improvement. The Highway Safety Improvement Program, and that is used to improve our highway safety, and then coordination with the State Department of Transportation on the federal funds in the region. So you can see there's a lot of emphasis on federal funding. So usually MOU or MPO funds are designated for state and federal projects. One of the things with those is they have surface transportation program funds, urban and rural. And so the MPO would use the urban funds, but one of our concerns is St. Croix County usually does pretty good with STP rural funding because we have high traffic volumes on our county roads, for example. And we're thinking that if we go into an MPO, we would lose the ability to apply for those funds. And so we did a map of trying to hit the threshold for 50,000 population, which is the bottom end of being able to create an MPO. And basically, it's the towns west of Highway 65, including New Richmond as well. So that's a fairly large geographical area that we're needed in order to hit the population amount, and there's a lot of rural roads in that area. We're not even sure if St. Croix County would qualify for it yet. A follow-up question that we would have to see is, do we meet the population density based off from our latest census data to qualify? And a lot of that goes back to the urban clusters that are set by the DOT. So if you look at like the city of Hudson, and that the density in the city of Hudson goes north all the way to County Road V as their urban cluster area for the DOT projects through the TIP program. So the closest MPO to St. Croix County here is the Chippewa, Eau Claire, and Lake Hallie MPO. And last year they received $270,000 in federal funding and an extra $12,000 in state funding, which most of that money went towards planning activities, these long-term plans. So that's what we've found out so far on MPOs.
It's the first question I have for you is on the MPOs, what's the makeup? Do you generally, what kind of board or how is it the makeup of an MPO established?
John, do you want to take that one?
Yep, just based on the general research we did, it's based on the population proportion of that entity. So if it's a larger city, they're going to have more representatives. If it's a town, they're going to have fewer representatives. The other thing too, that there are some technical positions that would be on that committee or board. Somebody, I believe, from DOT would have to be on that board as well. So it's not just elected representatives, there'd be representatives that would bring a technical aspect to that group.
Correct. And to start an MPO, you would need all the municipalities in that to be in agreement to enter into the MPO, and then it would require the governor to sign off on the MPO being created as well.
Okay. And the next, I have two more questions quick for you, but, so when you establish an MPO for the logistical part of it, you know, I understand where the money's coming from to be able to be spent out, but for the logistical portion of how, what funds the makeup of the organization to be able to function and do their job?
I believe in that'd be where a lot of these dollars and that from the federal and the state would be used to cover staffing and that for the planning activities and that for the running of the MPO. So it'd possibly be a partnership that the county could look at, you know, with West Central Regional Planning, you know, like Eric is doing for the Eau Claire Chippewa one. So.
You can ask that one yet, but my last quick question here is, so let's say you establish an MPO. Does the MPO then have overall jurisdictional control over any municipality? So in other words, if there's a disagreement within what the MPO wants and what some of the other government entities, municipalities have, is that something that has to be legally worked out, or is that something where the MPO statutorily has authority over any lower or any other municipal branch?
And so just to that aspect, we did talk with Robbie, our highway commissioner, and he was actually part of the Chippewa, Eau Claire, Lake Hallie MPO. And they do get fairly political in that as far as trying to prioritize projects. But the MPO, and that, as I understand it, would be the main controlling factor for the state and federal projects. But like a county road project, you know, and that the county would still have the authority.
So, and the MPO, what decisions of the MPO are made by the NPO board? So you said there's technical experts. Who are the, I guess, the elected people that would be on that, and how, and what kind of is that ratio, I guess?
I think it goes back to, like John said, based on population, and that, but I'm not sure exactly if each municipality would elect those people to be on. We haven't got into that detail yet.
Yeah, and then I guess the follow-up question to that, and maybe it's the same answer, is like, is it 50% elected, 50% experts? Is it 80% elected with a few technical people mixed in? Is it like HHS, where it's six elected people and 3 at-large positions? I guess that's my...
You have an answer? I don't.
Based on the examples we looked at, the bulk of the committee or board would be appointed by each governmental jurisdiction. So it may be a council member, it may not be. When I was mentioning the technical staff before, a DOT rep would be on that committee or board, but the actual MPO, as Jason mentioned, they get funding from the federal government. Some of that funding helps create the staff that helps operate the MPO. Some of that money would also go towards creating a transportation plan for that specific district. So those would be the two primary functions to get the MPO started. That's what would have to be done.
I guess my worry is, and I know that I guess this would be an extreme example, but I worry about an NPO getting grand ideas and establishing a state or federal level project that the rest of the government entities have no interest in.
Jerry.
I have a couple of questions too. You've kind of answered some, but Would this, if we join an MPO, would this restrict us in any way? And I think you would answer that yes, because it sounds like they're going to be making the decisions. We're going to have to live with those decisions. That reminds me, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was on the Chamber of Commerce in Baldwin, we had, I think, representatives from this, they were trying to canvass the county to join. And it's kind of like John said, there may be someone from the county involved, there may not be someone from the county involved, or from the village at that time. And most of the money that was coming back was spent on themselves. So you got the money from the state, you got the money from the federal, it was all pretty much spent on research, but to pay for the project, you were on your own.
Believe in that unless there's, specific grants out there and that yes, and that it does open up more potential to apply for grants, but the main costs are for planning activities. I'm just gonna pull Eric's email up here, and just in the last sentence or two here of this paragraph, for instance, we have worked on bicycle and ped plans, traffic safety reports, safe routes to school plans, and small local projects like where to put sidewalks, crossings, and more. So it's planning, having studies done, all of that kind of stuff is typically what those funds cover. As far as being more restrictive to us, I don't know if that would necessarily always be the case, but the whole point of the MPO is long-term planning and involving other stakeholders in that as a collaborative, and that basically approach to any plans. So, yep.
How much of this do we already have? I know I'm on the highway committee, a lot of grants and things like that we already get from the highway committee. And if I understood you said, they might go away in lieu of these grants. The word is might.
That was one of Robbie's concerns, and he was going to dig into more about his original thought was that we'd lose those STP rural funds, which just for example, County Road F south of Hudson down to Pierce County line, there is 5.5 miles. It's like a $2 million pavement project, and the STP rural kicked in 80% of that project, or 1.6 million. So that would be a big question, and that is to get refinement. And I apologize. It's been a hard topic to find out a lot of data on because there's not a lot of them around and not a lot of people familiar. Eric Anderson is the director for the Chippewa Lake Alley one. And that was his email response there kind of to some of our questions following up to your meeting. Yeah.
Don't we already have a lot of external resources available through West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning? Why would we need to add another layer of planning agency? And I know you're not advocating for this, you're just answering questions because we asked them. I'm not trying to put you on a spot. And I know that John's not either, because nobody's trying to put themselves out of business. It's like asking when a kid comes up and asks you for a baby python because they're so cute when they squeeze your pinky. But why would we want, can you think of any reason to do this? Any positive reason to do this?
Well, I believe the Chippewa Lake Alley Eau Claire MPO has about 9 staff. And so a much bigger commitment at that level. I think for St. Croix County, the geographical area that we need to hit in order to hit our 50,000 population may indicate to us that it might be a little premature for the county. Whereas if we could get it down to maybe one city and a couple of towns or something like that, where it was really a lot more condensed, and then we would know that we'd meet our population density, and then we wouldn't be using our rural funds. Our urban MPO funds would be targeted to a smaller area, and our rural funds would still be able to work out in the county.
That staff would be independent of county management then, right? That would be a staff that would be the Chippewa Eau Claire staff is independent of the Eau Claire County management, is that correct?
Correct.
So they wouldn't be.
I believe it's all being funded right now, and that with West Central Regional Planning, because they're actually West Central Regional Planning staff members, and that not city of Eau Claire or Chippewa County, so, yep.
Well, I think we got a report. Is there anything else? Any other questions? Okay, let's bring this up again in 20 years or so.
Well,
I think
yeah,
John,
and I mean, we're still doing some background, trying to find out more answers, so if there's anything that develops more, but like I said, it's been kind of a hard topic to get a lot of information on, so.
if there is anything really sounds juicy or useful,
Yep.
please keep us posted. I'm joking about the 20 years.
I mean,
15 maybe.
Yeah, I guess I know I've spoken twice on this already, but I guess my thought is the same as yours, Mr. Chairman, that this really serves us no purpose, especially at the size we're at, and especially, I don't know of any grant that we haven't applied to because we didn't have time to get, and maybe I'm missing something, but the grants we haven't applied to, the few and far between, are just ones that we had no interest in, is my...
I've been elected to this position for 10 years, and I've witnessed incredible, gifted staff apply for anything and everything that has been possible and succeed in nearly every grant that they could.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't, like you, don't see a need for this.
Right, right. And the same goes for New Richmond. They're very, very good at what they do. So this would be from Hudson to New Richmond. And I don't know the city of Hudson very well. I can speak for my own city and I can speak for the county, but I can't, I'm sure that they do well in Hudson. It's a nice looking town. But I just don't see it, personally, I don't see a need for it.
And one thing that St. Croix County is unique for, from what I've seen, is the amount of communication that community development has and the highway department especially. Our highway department is already working in that hand in hand with all of our towns. And so there is a lot of cooperation there amongst the county and the towns, and that on highway projects and on comprehensive plans and stuff. So it's not like there's not active communication channels that exist already.
Thanks for this report. And again, keep us posted if something, if there really is a cherry on top of this thing, but right now it doesn't.
Yep. Perfect.
It doesn't pass the smell test for me personally. So I appreciate your time. All right, so moving on. We're going to get into the meat of this thing, a review of the economic development chapter of our comprehensive plan.
Okay. Yep. So I will present that to you. We did send out the economic development chapter to St. Croix County, or St. Croix Economic Development Corporation. We did not get a chance to implement a lot of their changes into this draft because I just got them yesterday from NIDA. One of the things that they pointed out, and just us and that talking in the office, we believe that maybe we haven't done a good enough job emphasizing the small businesses that are in St. Croix County. A lot of this plan is talking about larger businesses. We talk about having 24 employers with over 100 employees. So just going forward, I want to take and say that, if it's okay with the committee, that we'd like to go back and maybe add a subsection in here where we talk about the small businesses in St. Croix County. So I just want to point that out in the table of contents. Then I will.
Do you want to take it back and rework it, and then we'll just come back to it instead of going through the whole thing now?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a huge thing. It'd probably be just one subsection in that we would change. So,
Right.
but I can keep this short. Also in the packet, there was a memo that took and included all of the changes that we've done to the draft to be in complete transparency. One of the comments that the EDC provided was removing the word county in the vision statement here, and then they wanted to replace county with St. Croix, so it'd be referring to their individual group. And as staff, our conversations were that that's probably not appropriate since this is a county economic development chapter and an economic development plan, whereas if it was their own plan, then that would be, but since it's the vision statement of this chapter, we kind of think that we should leave it like it is. So,
Would you remove the word corporation then?
yes. Good catch, Administrator Witt. And then we added the last line there, the county is able to benefit from technological advances to enhance its economic prosperity. The introduction stayed very much the same. I'm going to skip over that to our findings, issues, strengths, and weaknesses. And I'd just like to take and point out a few things. EDC wanted us to add CVTC as one of our technical colleges, which is true. They do take a lot of our students. Number 6 here, St. Croix County exceeds the state's median income since 2000. So county's doing pretty well financially, or the people in the county are doing pretty well. This is kind of an interesting stat. The county's tourism industry grew 20 million from 2021 to 2022, and that's 188 to 208 million. And number 10, while it might not be a positive, the county has currently 20 open environmentally contaminated sites. I've already mentioned in number 14 that we've got 24 employers that employ over 100 employees. And some of the weaknesses due to our growth pressure, and that from the Twin City metropolitan area, the county's transportation network and infrastructure will need to improve throughout the next few years to keep up with demands. And we do not have a public transportation system in number 16. One of the Economic Development Corporation's comments was they didn't feel like number 17 was appropriate because they believe that they are having better communication with local, county, and regional economic development groups. So I was wondering, is the committee supportive of removing that provision? And I will say that in our goals, that we do have several statements addressing trying to communicate and encouraging communication between local, state, and county levels of government.
Communication is something that is dynamic, and it changes, could be week to week, month to month, year to year, and it's not something that should be plugged into a 10-year plan.
Okay.
I kind of want to strike 16, the public transportation system, as a weakness. It kind of seems like we would make a goal to like kind of create one in the next 10 years, and I personally don't see that as a goal for the next 10 years.
Could you flesh that out a little, unpack what you mean? Because you think we should, or you think we shouldn't?
No, I think if it's in the weaknesses section, it implies that it's something we want to change in during the period of this comprehensive plan.
And we spent about 3 years studying that. We created the transportation, what was it? We created a whole group, though. They did a lot of research and study into it, and basically at the end of it, it was cost prohibitive, and so that group was disbanded. Yeah. Sean would have been on the tail end of it, probably not when it was created, but probably when it was dissolved.
You might have been newly elected when we decided it was cost prohibitive. It was.
The Transportation Committee works with the same thing, and we're still part of that consortium, but yeah, it's like you said, the cost is so prohibitive.
Yeah, you're part of the rail one is.
The rail one, right.
Is what
yeah.
you're, but there was actually one that looked at providing taxi or bus
Bus
service
service,
around
yeah.
the county, and that's what it would have been a county transportation system, which is what this is saying. It's correct, we don't have one, but we did study it already, and I agree, we probably won't study it again in the next 10 years, since that one's still fresh and I remember it.
But I think it does remain a weakness. It's if you live in Baldwin and you get a job in Hudson and you don't have a car, it's a weakness for workforce development. It is a real weakness. And from an economic development perspective, not having, in the world of economic development, transportation is a major subject, and not having public transportation is considered a weakness. I think it stands, my opinion, and what do you guys think?
I would agree with Sean. I think it's so impractical that it's not worth keeping in there. I don't think that's a weakness. I don't see it as a weakness. If we had 3 times the population, it may be, but the population we have in this county doesn't dictate that. I don't think.
What do you say?
If our unemployment rates were really super high and it was to a point, well, hey, we have 1 million jobs in Hudson and we have 1 million people living in Baldwin, and we could justify the cost to, where it would economically make sense. But we don't. We are in a situation in our county right now where we have extremely low unemployment, and the people all have transportation.
I concede the point. Let's not drag this out.
Okay,
Good, it's a good point, Sean, I agree.
I'm gonna remove 16 and 17 then.
Was it
Can I-
14? No, it wasn't. It was-
16 and 17, yep.
Can I bring up a couple on?
Go ahead.
On the weaknesses, okay, out of all the people that are gonna be reading our comprehensive plan, the highest percentage of people are gonna be people that are considering moving to St. Croix County. And they're gonna look at this, hey, does this make sense for me to move? What's where's the county looking to move for the future? And they're the ones that are actually gonna be diligently looking through, step by step through all of these. So when I see weaknesses and stuff, there's things here that I'm concerned about. And I'm not saying that necessarily they're right or wrong, but even the one with the housing issue. There was just an article about 3 weeks ago from NASDAQ that was put out that said New Richmond, Wisconsin, is #1 in the entire nation for real estate investment because of their low-cost housing and the low cost of property. And it's a place that, watch out, developers should really invest here. And so when I hear something like that, and then I'm seeing, well, geez, we price ourselves out to our market, they don't go together. So I'm just concerned about if we're gonna plug these things in, that we're kind of watching for these types of things and making sure that we're making it soft. Because the people are gonna really look at this are the ones that wanna locate here, and they're thinking about it.
I would like to just, I don't want to counter that, Mr. Counter, but I want to sprinkle a little reality on this, that this needs to be somewhat objective, and that as we represent ourselves, I don't want to be that person in the interview who says, when they ask me what my weakness is, that I'm just too good looking and people don't like me because of it. I want to be objective in this and present a somewhat objective view. And when our planners who are professionals and understand what the best practices are in the world of planning and economic development, think that these are our weaknesses, I don't want to soften that because of a marketing consideration. So that's my thought on that. I'd like to leave the rest of these because I think they are an objective view of what the county's weaknesses may be from an economic perspective. Those are my thoughts. Because there are plenty of opportunities to sell St. Croix County. We're a fantastic opportunity for the world to come to, and we are going to grow tremendously in the next, no matter what we say in this document.
I'm going to agree and disagree with both of you. Depends on the point. I think 18 is fine because it specifies in parts. It doesn't say the whole county. And I mean, just objectively, the housing is more expensive in this county than most of the rest of the state. Yep. I maybe want to reword number 19 a little bit. High quality of life amenities. Maybe instead of that, say something like a greater selection of activities and restaurants and I don't know, extracurricular activities or something. It's because some people's quality of life amenities is being able to, bike down their county road and see hardly any traffic. It's just, this is kind of, yeah, exactly. A higher selection of theaters and restaurants or whatever, yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? We change the, sort of get rid of the strengths and weaknesses, because in our other sections we had issues or findings and issues for the title versus the strengths and weaknesses. And I just noticed that, and it maybe changes the connotation a little bit, because we are, like you noticed, we are competing with those places. So it is an issue and a finding. It's not necessarily a weakness.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess,
Good thinking.
I had some wording for 19 in my head with that changing, and I can't remember it now. Just
You're
slipped
welcome
away.
to jump in anytime you want to, Sean.
Okay.
Anybody else object to just throwing out the strengths and weaknesses, leaving the findings and issues? It makes sense. It makes sense, because the further we got into the weeds there, the more awkward it felt.
Right, I think, because if you even look at number 20, which may be considered a weakness, but if you're a developer, it's a real weakness, but if you're a farmer, it's a strength. So, it's one of those, can go either way. So maybe just undo that and let people move here and find out for themselves. How's that?
Mr. Hilgers, do you have an opinion on that? Okay.
I would still, though, like to keep 16 and 17 off.
Right, we'll remove 16, 17, strengths, weaknesses, and then we'll massage the wording in number 19 to kind of go for something you're looking at, so. And that,
You're not
jumping
going
in-
to just strike 11 through 20?
We're throwing out 11 through 20.
What's that?
I think Brett suggested we strike 11 through 20. Or no?
Well,
Yeah,
no,
that's-
not necessarily. I was more suggesting we change the name and get rid of strength and weakness
Change the name,
titles
protect the
and just
innocent.
call it findings and issues. Get rid of the headers, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Keeping.
Opportunities for employment are going to be strong in education, health, ag, and tourism industries. Number 2 there, the baby boomer generation, as they get older, their demands for specific goods and services are going to expand, which could possibly create new opportunities. And that's what we've got for opportunities.
Do you think 10 years from now, those people are going to be around?
We've got a graph that shows, and that later on in this chapter, that, yeah, they still will be. So that generation will, or that the county's population in general is going to age. So,
Okay.
Where do you think we're going? Just want to know. I'm in that generation, that's why I'm going to.
Well, I'm the, yeah, I guess. All right.
okay, so then U.S. economic trends, pretty much a lot of this stayed the same. I'm just going to hit on the last sentence, and in the graph below here, a negative score shows an economic downturn. And so you can see there was a significant one in the 2008 crash. There was a little bit one at COVID, and then right now it's a little bit low as well. In the Wisconsin economy, Just some highlights here. Personal income increased 2.5% in 2022, with an 8% growth in wages and salaries. That's across the whole state now. And that wages and salaries are expected to increase 5% in Wisconsin and 5.3% in the US in 2023. And the growth is going to be 8 and 8.2% respectively. The number of homes sold in 2022 was down 14.4% from the 2021 sales numbers. And so far in 2023, home sales have fell through July 23.6%. Wisconsin's unemployment rate is expected to grow 1.6% in 2023, and it is expected to rise to 3.8% by 2026. The Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation provides for various areas of economic well-being. A lot of these have kind of stayed the same, but the individual stuff within each category has changed. And that, of course, fuel stability and education for everybody, healthy living, respect for the environment, and community infrastructure are the main pools.
Say, Jason, I have a question on the top of that page under Wisconsin Economic Development, the new COVID response and recovery. Is there a new COVID response and recovery? That's the, right at the top. The third line down. The new COVID response and recovery, economic well-being, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering,
Does that belong in a 10-year plan that we haven't even released yet?
Right.
yeah, I would take that out of there.
Okay, not a problem.
Unless we have an answer about the new, whatever that's gonna
I
be,
would
but I
assume it's
think
only
we
the
don't.
vaccination procedure, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you.
Okay, the state occupation employment forecast. There's a lot of specifics down here in the table, but you can see that food preparation and service-related occupations, and that is the highest. And it goes down to farming and fishing and forestry and office and administrative support occupations remaining almost neutral or even slightly below. So these are percent increases or changes, and that from 2020 to 2030. So this is kind of looking forward. So if you were somebody that was moving here, of course, you'd want to pick a occupation that was closer to the left with the higher growth. Okay, St. Croix County economic profile. So this is more specific to us. Just like to point out that approximately 40% of county residents commute outside of Wisconsin to the Twin Cities metropolitan area for employment. The metro area is referred to as the Twin Cities MSA, and St. Croix County is one of the 13 counties that make up this area. However, in that we are not part of the Met Council, which is the planning agency, similar to our MPO conversation for that area. Our population as of the 2020 census was 93,536. In the 2010 to 2020 time period, and that St. Croix County actually experienced a lower growth rate than the previous decade from 2000 to 2010. The population growth rate declined between 2010 and 2020 to 11% from the original 49%, from the original 34%. 49% of that growth was natural births minus deaths, and 51% was migration into the county. And there was a comment earlier about the median age of St. Croix County residents. Sorry. So right here, you can see 1990 median age 31.6, 2010 we were 36.7, 2020 39.2, and 2040 we're going to be 44.2, and if we want to look out on that as far as 2060, it's projected to be 49.1 as our average median age. Education, I'd just like to hit on some stats here as well. These are the percent of 25-year-olds that are high school graduates have increased by 5%. The number of 25-plus-year-olds that have bachelor's degrees has increased by around 10% since the year 2000. In St. Croix County, we've got 11 K through 12 public schools. We've got 28 public schools total. We've got 11 libraries, and then we've got the 2 technical colleges, Northwoods and CVTC. And also the EDC suggested putting in there private or homeschooling as having a presence within the county or an option. So I was going to add that as number 9.
Another thing that we have quite a bit, it seems like all the time we concentrate on our, the high school obviously, but getting bachelors and masters and all these types of things, and we kind of go to the wayside. We have really great training and a lot of people that work union jobs and all this that have trade certificates and those types of things. Can we get any of the data on these types of things and what they're doing too? Because they do add a lot to our economy and our lives, and we need to accredit them for their efforts and for what they do.
Absolutely, we'll look into that. Okay, so then if we look at our county and state median income comparisons, you can see 2020 here, and that the state of Wisconsin is 67,000 roughly, and St. Croix County was almost 85,000. So that just shows in that the county does have a significant amount of good paying jobs in comparison to the other areas of the state. Okay. When we look at wages a little further in depth, number 1 increase was management. Number 2 increase was mining. Now, please understand that we don't know how many samples we've had in this data, but it does come from a credible source, the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. And the ones that have seen decreases are information experienced careers and manufacturing careers.
Jason, I think that mining at $101,000 strengthens Scott's argument about maybe we should not only talk about college degrees and people with doctorates and things like that, because they're making less money than the guy who's running a bulldozer.
So then there's a line graph here of the wages, and that over the time you can see and that management is this dark blue line where it's really jumped, and something like healthcare down here at the bottom has remained relatively steady, not as large of increases, believe it or not. Okay, labor and employment status. One of the things I thought was an interesting fact was, and that St. Croix County residents, 16 years of age and older, roughly 75% were in the labor force in the past 20 years. So that's a pretty large number. And the county, as shown in the graph here, did experience a very high unemployment rate during the 2008 to 2010 time period during the recession of almost 9%. In 2020, the unemployment was at 2.1%. Okay, and we've got a list here of the 24 organizations or employers that provide over 100 employees jobs within St. Croix County. So they're all right here. Okay, so the county gained 1,157 jobs from 2020 to 2021, which was ranked the 15th amongst the states.
Here?
Yeah, sorry.
I'd like to rank these differently. When we say major employers, I don't think we should count them just by the number of employees they have. I'd like to talk about employers who provide a living wage. OEM provides people with a living wage. People actually live well on the jobs they have. People who live at Walmart or work for Walmart receive services from the county to take care of their children. That's not comparable. To list OEM as a under Walmart as a less, when you see OEM listed under Walmart on a table with major employers, it doesn't seem credible. They're a fabulous company that's started here in St. Croix County and has provided great jobs for people who raise their families here. And Walmart sucks the life out of the community and takes the profit someplace else. So I wouldn't want to see a company that doesn't provide a living wage listed in a table of major employers.
Okay, we can work on that section. So I'm not exactly sure what the answer would be right now. Because I'm not sure we'll be able to find all that information, but we'll be able to take and modify that to your liking.
Yeah, I was just gonna raise the same point Jason did, that I don't disagree with you at all. It's just hard to know. With a lot of them, it's hard to know what companies are paying more than others. I mean, OEM and Walmart is obviously two opposite ends of the spectrum. But I don't know that we have income data to really sort them that way.
It's always been a request of mine of the Economic Development Corporation is to measure success by qualifying the FTEs and a living wage. And when we get to a graph like this and we are looking at major employers, how do we actually qualify the quality of life of those positions? To see Walmart listed in a graph of major employers, it just kind of puts a burr under my saddle, if you'll allow that term, because they employ a lot of people, but it's not a living wage. Go ahead, sir.
But I think you have to keep in mind that there may be people looking to move here that know that they aren't going to be working for OEM because they don't know how to weld. They're not going to be working for Phillips Plastic or Donaldson Company, but they can work for Walmart. They have the ability to work for Walmart. They have the education to work for Walmart. So for them, I think it's important. We're not looking here. This graph doesn't say we're going to make the most money. It says these hire the most people. You have to have that someplace. And that doesn't, it's not that it's not useful. I found that rather interesting. But yes, there are people who are moving in that can work at Walmart, or elderly people, older people who have retired once, want something to do. They aren't going to end up in OEM or Hudson Medical or one of those.
Well, I've
That's
made,
my
I've made
point.
my point that the difference is pretty clear. The gentleman who founded OEM helped me make the decision who to hire for county administrator, and nobody who decides to come to St. Croix County reads the comprehensive plan if they're going to go to work for Walmart.
Yeah, I mean,
Their deciding factor.
if the ask is to move Walmart to the bottom of the 250 to 499 category, I don't think I'm opposed to that at all.
Yeah, I guess.
I think if we can add one more data, like an average wage or something, we could reorder it then. Short of that, it's just by how many bodies they're hiring.
Yeah.
That's what this data table
Do we
shows.
have data on average wage for these companies?
I don't know, but if we can pull that, that would be how we could reorder it. So we'll look to see what data points are available, because I know you just don't want Walmart on the top. So we'll see if there's an additional data point we could add and reorder it then by that. But that's what Jason was saying. He doesn't know what data we have available yet.
That should be a different chart, the chart that shows.
Well, you could add a column.
Yeah, you could add a column that maybe filters the size by average wage or whatever.
Yep.
And that's fine.
We'll work on it.
We should recognize corporations that offer a quality of life. We should celebrate those corporations.
So,
And corporations that don't, we should just,
Well, do you want to take and create a separate little sentence or a paragraph in that highlights St. Croix County only businesses or something that?
no, I think what we should do is go back to that, we should either do that ourselves in the future, or we should challenge our Economic Development Corporation, the way I've been trying to do for the last 10 years, and ask them to develop a method of measuring success of the businesses in St. Croix County.
so,
And we can move on from there.
so
I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
you could, I guess, try to raise to the top the companies that are, I guess, St. Croix County exclusive or headquartered in St. Croix County, and maybe that's the way to do it, because, I mean, obviously, OEM is headquartered in St. Croix County. Target is not. Uline is not, right? I mean, it's just what direction do you want to go?
For our comprehensive plan, we need to focus on what makes St. Croix County, we're giving statistical data on a picture. It's a snapshot of what St. Croix County is. This is a fine snapshot. I'm making a point. I've made the point. I just hate to think of seeing OEM listed underneath Walmart in this chart. That's all. And later on, we can deal with these other questions.
Okay.
I think the point's been made.
We can
Thank
do
you.
that.
Go ahead.
The only thing I'd want to look at too with this, and I think you'd mentioned it earlier, that the economic development was talking about, was if we can also bring into it, we have many that are smaller businesses that are under those counts that have extremely high paying jobs, and knowing that information that, hey, St. Croix has got all these supporting industry things. They're smaller companies, but they really have a great pay scale. And, and again, it's a tool to help sell people that, hey, let's go to St. Croix.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, and we'll both spend some time on that and recognize those smaller businesses.
But I'm not sure that comprehensive plan is a place to recognize individual businesses. This list is just, coming back to that, right?
Yeah,
It's just a sample.
just a
But
small business.
Again, and we can come back to that and talk about that as a committee. How do we want to handle that? I think we do need to get involved with and interject a little bit more in how we do economic development. And this is a great putting our toe in the door. So let's just put a bookmark here and get back into the business of our comprehensive plan.
I mentioned about the 1,157 jobs that were gained from 2020 to 2021. However, there was a very steep job loss in that in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic, so we've got that covered. We did gain 250 jobs from 2020 to 2021 though, overall. So here just shows you a breakdown of where each of those positions is and how they make up our labor force. Industry clusters, and that we're part of the Minneapolis economic area here with the dark blue shading. And the industry clusters are kind of a unique concept because they're the 10 strong traded clusters in our area. And what strong traded cluster means is that these areas have high levels of specialized employees in St. Croix County. And the numbers in the dots themselves represent the number of employees that work in that field or in that area. And so these are just unique to our county. Another county or another state, you know, might have different clusters depending on their workforce. Okay, and we're just gonna dip our toe into the housing market in the economic development chapter. We've got the whole housing chapter. Currently right now, there is 3,386 new housing units from 2010 to 2020. The number of occupied housing units has increased by 2,884. The percent of vacant units has also increased. It's 0.76%. The average household size is decreasing slightly, 700ths. And the percent of family households decreased by 7.5%. Thought it was interesting when we're talking about our transportation stuff like we were earlier, that roughly 40% of households had 2 vehicles, and roughly 50% heat their homes with utility gas or heating fuel. Natural gas. Okay, so building permits. We had consumer expenditures that was provided by West Central Planning, and it just tells you where people are spending their money. You know, shelter, of course, is number 1, transportation's number 2, food is number 3, healthcare is number 4, and so on down the line. Building permits have remained strong in the county.
Yeah,
Yep, sorry.
I guess how are these totals figured out? Because it says average household consumer expenditures, but it seems like the total is like the total that the whole county has spent on that expense.
Oh, I don't know. And that, I mean, this is, you know, only thousands, so only 500,000.
Yep,
Yep. I think this is a typo right here and that for the total.
Okay.
That we need to add something in there or remove that part.
So if the value of the average housing arrangement in the county is almost $547,000, I don't see how the average transportation arrangement is 480. I guess the table just, I don't know what these numbers, I mean, I get the ratio, but I don't know what these numbers mean, if that makes sense. Am I missing something?
No, and that, I can look into it.
You're thinking, Sean, that the average family, yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. Shelter, roughly 550,000, and transportation, 400. So the average family would be spending, what, $1.4 million here on all these things when you add it up, because this doesn't add up to a total.
Decimal point is in the wrong
need to either not have this or get a hold of West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning and have them talk to Applied Solutions, whatever, and tell them that their numbers don't add up.
Since we're in the season and that, this is kind of an interesting number. Gifts, 65,000. Pretty generous we are.
Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah.
Hope you're on Santa's nice list.
All right, so moving on, and that we'll definitely look at that whole section and try to make some sense of it.
Jason, could I mention one thing else? So this is a comprehensive plan. We're bringing it up to date, and the newest date on that page is 2020. We're a third of a decade beyond that. And it's not only this one, the next one we're going to look at too, the housing chapter there. The newest is 2020. A lot of them are 2010. And don't these specs come out any more often than that?
It's the U.S. Census data, so it's every 10 years. So that's the reason. We could get our own in-house numbers for maybe single-family dwellings there, but it's going to take and defeat the credibility of the census data.
Yeah, but the way it is, it gives a false picture because, for instance, the screen you have up there, building permits, 715 in 2020, but now we're in 2023 and it's down to 400. So that chart does very little good to anyone who's looking at a builder, for instance, that's looking at moving into this part of the country and saying, hey, yeah, I'm gonna cash in on building new houses. Yeah, that was, but now it isn't because that's a long time past.
When somebody comes and they're wanting information on St. Croix County, we don't give them the comprehensive plan, we give them other information.
Right, but this is available online.
This is available online.
So if I'm going to move someplace, I'm going to
look into your online research.
Not just the whipped cream you give me, but I'm going to look at the crust too.
How do we supplement this with current information? Say in 2026, do we do an addendum? Have we ever done that kind of thing with our comprehensive plan?
Well, and that's the problem, and that it's not that our staff, hasn't tried to get this comp plan amendment done on a timely fashion, but the 2020 census data wasn't released until late 2021 or 2022, and then that's when the process started on the comprehensive amendment. So that's how stuff gets so far behind. And that I'm not sure that we really can change that table, but maybe we can add some information above for current 2023 out of our county numbers because we do track similar. So,
or even 2022 because this year's not done yet, right. Obviously.
Yeah, we would have to reach out to some munis and stuff and see if we can get that data from them. So,
well, and looking at this also, that this is our. It's a comprehensive plan and we're using this to kind of weigh into where the future lies. Is there maybe a consideration that you could do a projected and then show like a high projection, low projection and get some help from the planning, West Central Wisconsin planning, where you might be able to show, well, here would be a maximum projection, here's a minimum projection, and it would just go out so many years out to kind of give a concept to where are we going, what's happening, because this is supposed to be a plan to help us for the future.
Yeah, the data is most useful looking at historical trends. I mean, that's the way we do budgeting, is I look at the historical trend of stuff. What I would tell you is you say, well, how come we don't have 23 we haven't done yet? Why don't we have 22? Well, 21 and 22 were pandemic years. So a lot of the data from those years is a little skewed. So you can't really say, well, this is the trend. Look at that giant dip. So 2020 probably is the last year of solid data that was probably stable that we had. And we'll really want to go a few years before you hit your next plot point to draw that trend line. So I don't know that 2020 data is really that bad.
So we can't bind a future board, but could we make a recommendation that we have a supplemental in 26 or 27? I mean, we're not going to probably be here, but is it something that we can leave a recommendation? This is something because of the pandemic we suggest halfway through this 10-year project.
Yeah, if 10 years isn't enough, you want to do this every 5, we can.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing, guys. Let's keep moving.
Sure, yeah, I'm gonna try to speed up here. All right, taxation, in 2023, St. Croix County has the lowest tax levy rate since 1970. Just wanted to point that out. Largest tax value, of course, residential. Commercial is at 13%, so there's a dramatic decrease or, separation between them two. The chart here shows how much of the taxes are from each category. And if you want to see dollar amounts, the table right below it has the assessed values. Okay, tourism is a very important part. Like I said, it increased in that 20 million alone just in the last couple of years here. Just some high points. We removed some private company names out of the tourism section here and just made it more general. Like there's 13 golf courses, 200 miles of snowmobile trails, and outdoor motocross tracks and race tracks within the county, just to highlight some of the uses that are here. Another big thing, tourism industry generated a record-breaking $23.7 billion in total economic impact, according to Travel Wisconsin in 2022 in St. Croix County, surpassing the previous record amount of $22.2 billion. So about $1.5 billion more.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
If somebody's reading this from, when I say out of town, I mean out of state, third paragraph, second line, given the county's close proximity to the Twin Cities, that's almost like jargon to somebody who doesn't know where we are. I'd suggest you say, given the county's close proximity to the St. Paul, Minneapolis market.
Okay. All right. Next topic is, unfortunately, our brownfields within the county. And so there's a list of them here in the table. All 20 of them are there, and where they're actually at within the county, their address. And then this little box up here breaks down what the abbreviations are for the type of brownfield it is here. And I will point out that if you looked at the 2012 plan, that you would see that some of the sites in that plan are no longer on this. This is through the DNR's website, and some of those Superfund sites have been closed or cleaned up, is all we can see, and that, so they're no longer provided. So. Next, we've got a list of all 11 industrial or business parks within the county, roughly where they are located, and our best phone number for those contacts. Our future land use map is also in this chapter. This is the same as what would be in our land use chapter. I'm going to keep on moving. Okay, the last here is the list of various federal agencies and programs, state agencies, regional agencies, and local agencies. And I did have one change from the Economic Development Corporation. Number 3 here, it is a title change. It should be St. Croix Economic Development Corporation and Tourism Bureau, not St. Croix County. So strike the word county as all, since we're identifying them as that organization. Okay, underneath local organizations here, the EDC also suggested providing for the chambers of commerce that are within the county, because they may be doing economic promotion as well. So we thought we'd provide a list of them there, starting at number 6. Okay, when we get into goals, number 1.1 and 1.2, 1.1 is promoting businesses and the expansion of businesses within the county. Number 2 is the recruitment and incorporation of new businesses. Those are 2 main ones. 2.1, supporting ag businesses that encourage the viability and diversity of ag in the county. Goal number 3, that I'm just hitting the high points that kind of go back to each part of our chapter, to take and limit commercial and industrial business development, interference with surrounding existing uses. We know we've got a lot of housing developments. 4.1 is support the area's strong educational institutions and retention of and connection to its graduates. And 4.2, you guys kind of brought this up, encourage training programs to promote a well-educated and skilled workforce. Any suggestions on any of those?
Any thoughts on the questions? No? Let's keep going.
Okay. And then when we get onto the next page, business retention and new business, the county encourages the expansion and addition of ag businesses, tourism, light industrial, high technology manufacturing, and businesses that provide high wage employment opportunities for area residents. We had a survey result of 60% agreed or strongly agreed with using local tax dollars to attract new jobs and retain existing jobs in the county. We also had another survey that favored recruiting businesses in ag and farms, 61%, high-tech industry, 48%, light industry, 49%. So those 2 surveys kind of formulate the number 1 provision up there that the county encourages the expansion and addition of those businesses. I think number 9 is important with our other chapter of intergovernmental cooperation, assist local units of government in accessing the needed tools and resources to preserve and maintain their own downtowns and neighborhood commercial areas. Number 10 hits on one of our chapter topics, is encouraging the reuse of brownfield and underutilized sites for new industrial and commercial developments, not housing developments. Then we're on our last page here. I skipped over ag because we already identified one, or I pointed one out. But commercial and industrial businesses under number 22, not compatible with the rural character of the county, will be encouraged to locate in urban areas or rural hamlets where adequate transportation and utility infrastructure exist to serve those types of developments. And then workforce, education, and employment. The county supports strengthened connections between area high schools, colleges, universities, and the business community. That was kind of the rundown I had on the chapter, so any other comments on those?
I think you had a section 2 where you were identifying all of the public school systems.
Yes.
And we do have quite a variety of also parochial. Is there a reason that we left them out of the scope to let people know of, you know, that we do have these additional means? And also, do we identify ever how many people are currently alternate educations and stuff? 'Cause there's everything is changing, the whole way we do everything.
Right. We did go, yeah, Brett.
Yeah, we did look at those numbers. I believe we updated those numbers as part of the community facilities chapter. If you recall, we had that discussion. That was a number of months ago.
Yeah, these plans are so large, and the requirements and statutes, utilities, community facilities chapter, we're supposed to list and outline all of those things, and we did that there. We can supply a reference back to that from the economic development if you would like, but we did outline quite a bit of that information there.
I have a comment. In number 23, when it says county supports strengthened connections, I'd love to be able to flesh that out and know how we support strengthened connections. And that's another conversation perhaps, maybe not for this document, but if we're committing in a 10-year document to support strengthened connections, maybe we can make that part of a goal for later. How do we communicate with and build our commitment to workforce development through connections with educational institutions, and what does that look like? I'd like to see it. What are we doing next? Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Under the energy section, it's about renewable energy, and I'm not stating my opinion on renewable energy, it's just what, I guess, impact at all or effect can the county have on renewable energy projects? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but according to the state statute, that's determined and driven by the state level policymakers.
So I believe these two provisions were just brought in from the 2012 plan, but just not to get too far into the weeds, county can regulate renewable energy systems up to 100 megawatts. Once they're over 100 megawatts, then it's Public Service Commission for those types of facilities. And we do have solar and wind regulations, I believe, so.
Okay, so now we're finished with this, if there are no further questions. The next thing is, there's three things going on that I want to talk about. One, we need a 3-minute and 45-second break. So we're going to do that. We're going to take a break. Two, I want to ask the Hausers, are you interested in the housing comprehensive plan? Nod your head. Were you planning on staying? Okay. We're going to change the order of the, if you, with your consent, we're going to change the order and go into the Highway 35 Phase 1. Can you do that easily?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to take a 3-minute and 45-second break, and come back and do the Highway 35 Phase 1 trail bid, and then go into the next section of the comprehensive plan. Thank you. We have returned, we're back in session, reconvened.
Okay, so at the last committee meeting, the committee had a good conversation about the trail and had some questions. My recollection was that there was 3 questions. One, is there a lime rock option so that the trail doesn't have to be paved? And we looked underneath the TAP grant requirements, and that would not be allowed. It does have to be a paved trail in order to qualify. The other question that the committee had was, can this trail be used for a snowmobile trail in the winter? And unfortunately, our grant here was granted in 2020 and back then, and that you cannot do it. But since the infrastructure bill and the BIL bill went into place, now there is options for having snowmobile trail usage on these TAP grant trails. So that was the 2 options there. The third question the committee had was in regards to whether or not our highway department could construct the trail for us, and that to try to save some money. And that one is a little more complicated of a question. So we reached out to DOT, and they brought up the possibility of a local force agreement, or an LFA. However, and that our DOT contact has never done one of these LFAs. And when we reached out to Robbie, which truly is an expert on the TAP grant provisions, there was a 2015 MOU that ended the use of LFAs for paving and for grading. And so he had a separate DOT contact that informed him about that MOU that was done. Also, even if we could do that, there is a requirement that 2.9% of the total construction costs would have to be let construction to disadvantaged businesses, or at least try to pick those businesses first. And if highway was able to do the construction, we would still be on the hook for the construction administrative costs, because then they would be barred from helping us with overseeing the construction of the trail. Just to remind you, the plan itself took 800 feet of curb and gutter, and there's a bunch of concrete flat work that our county highway department, even if they could, would have to take and bid out. And so basically, Robbie's like, even though we can't do an LFA, he wanted to give you guys enough information. He's like, we're still looking at $700,000 for our county highway department to do it, and that included the curb and gutter and the concrete work. However, that does not include construction costs. So we reached out to our engineer, SEH, about what the construction administration cost would be for the project through them, and it was roughly $60,000 for that. However, working with highway and our staff, we believe in that we would have enough qualified people to be able to oversee the construction of the trail, therefore saving that $60,000. And Robbie was able to offer up some engineering tech services and engineer services in case we run into any kinds of issues out there. So that was pretty generous of them. So the bid opening was on November 2nd, and the bids were only good for 90 days. And so the 90-day period would be February 2nd. The lowest bid, again, was $847,683. There was also on the agreement for the TAP funds that we have to start construction, or our commencement deadline is August 31st of 2024, and the project completion is June 30th, 2026. So I want to point that out to be very clear, because when we were here last time, we were told from SEH that it was May 1st through September 1st of 2024. So while we have more time for the completion deadline, the commencement date is still coming up soon. And so if we go over the total numbers, the breakout is originally the project cost was $468,000. with a 93,000 county match. The federal portion, the federal funds are $374,507.20. So that would be the number that we would turn back to the feds if we did not go through with the project. These were, believe it or not, lined up really nice in IQM2 before, but so if we did everything, and that the total project estimate then, and that was $468,134. If we don't do the project, we'll still end up reimbursing the DOT for the design cost, which is roughly this 93,000. I think it's a little higher than that right now. If we go forward with the project and that we're taking the 847 minus the 374, and that's kind of the number that we're looking for. So John and I have been, well, all of us in our office have been trying to consider options for funding. And there's two grants that I mentioned like last time. One is a special community development grant through Governor Evers. That's a 50% cost share. That grant deadline is January 31st. Basically what we were going to seek out of that grant was the 847 number, our low bid, minus the federal funds. So it comes down on that to about 473,000. And then, so that was our grant amount that we're applying for. And then if we were awarded that grant, and if it was a 50% cost share, that would be essentially 236,500 for the county. Again, trying to be creative, since we've got the Glen Hills bathroom entrance station project scheduled for 2024. We plan on applying for the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant, and we're told that there's two different thresholds for that grant. One is 250,000 or less, and the other one is 250,000 or more. If it's more than 250,000, then it's got to go to their committee for approval, and if it's not, then it's more of an administrative review. And the county has been successful in obtaining those grants for our other park projects. Now, of course, that funding wouldn't go towards the trail. That would have to go towards that project, but then that would free up some extra dollars in the KIP that were, set aside for the Glen Hills project that could possibly go to this. If we were successful in obtaining both grants and for the full amounts that we requested, we could possibly come out about 13,000 ahead of this 472 number. But there is risk. These are competitive grants. John has the one for January already drafted. We hope that we, maybe are ahead of the game since we've got all of the design work done and it's kind of like a shovel-ready project to go on this trail. But that's essentially the risk that we're looking at.
Yeah, if I could recap just a little bit, my understanding of it. So Highway could build it for 700,000, but then you can't use the grant. So it costs us a full 700. So that's not really an option anymore. Applying for the grants, great. They should absolutely do that, but we don't have any guarantee of that. I think what the county board has to decide is if you're going to move forward, you're going to have to decide that now because of some of the timing issues. And it's 375,000 more than we originally budgeted.
You pay back the engineering costs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're out 100,000 whether you build it or don't build it. I mean, that's the sunk cost. Build it or don't build it, we've spent 100,000. If you want to build it, it's going to cost you an extra 375,000. And there's some great plans that they have there that might offset the cost, but you really have to go into it with the worst case scenario.
Right. Our other option, so we got a few different options in that, depending on what you guys do tonight, we could take and go back out and we could bid it again because we do have round 2 of a bidding going on early next year. We could reach out to the contractor that had lowest bid and seek another 30-day review, but that's unknown whether or not that would be granted. And if you go back out to bids, we don't know where those would come in either.
What are, okay, so I have a few thoughts. What are the chances that I doubt the expenses are trending to be lower in February. I could be wrong, but
Talking with Robbie, he's getting a lot more bids in for projects than we are. Some of his projects are coming in right where they thought, and the DOT though, and that is seeing some projects that are higher as well. This is kind of a unique project, so I think that's one of the reasons why it was, so much off, and then just the amount of inflation that's happened since 2021.
Mm-hmm. I guess my initial thought is we do a budget amendment to cover the difference, and then if we end up getting that grant for Glen Hills, we can amend the budget again. Because I know it's not a small amount of money, but I don't think this is gonna. I know this isn't gonna put us at like the danger zone on our fund balance level, and I don't want to send $100,000 back to the feds.
This is phase 1 of 3 phases, correct? And we're having this much trouble and cost overruns on phase 1. You can only imagine phase 2 and 3 are going to be the same thing. I mean, there's no reason why not. John has something to say. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so we just submitted the phase 2 application. We got the resolution of support from the county board. What DOT allowed us to do after the fact was amend our cost estimates so we can get to the 2027 value. And then in addition to that, they let us build in a 10% contingency. So DOT is seeing this, it's not just us, they're seeing this on other projects across the state. So they're being a little bit more preemptive with the applicants and saying, okay, you submitted your application with those numbers, assuming they'd be 2024, 2025 dollars. We're giving everybody a chance before we score them to adjust those numbers to a 2027 value. So with the help of the highway department, we worked on adjusting those numbers, and we were able to build in addition to that, a 10% contingency. So as far as the phase 2 project goes, we feel a lot more comfortable than how we ended up with the phase 1. Just kind of an FYI thing for you.
The original grant that we submitted for phase 2 was $668,000, and then our revised estimate was $943,000. And it was using a lot of the numbers that we had in this bid and then adding that forecast amount.
I guess the point I was getting to is, how badly do we want this? We're looking at $3 million for a bicycle trail. And how willing are the people of St. Croix County to spend that much on it?
Yeah, $3 million will be about the total expense. I know about if we end up just having to pay for this difference ourselves, maybe a third of it will be by the county. For me, that's worth it, especially over the 6-8 year period we'll actually be doing construction. And yeah, I know that phase 2 and 3 will be a larger budgeted amount for the county, but it won't be like we'll go from, it's not like it will quadruple with the inflation factor allowed to build in, it sounds like.
The earlier conversation we had tonight was about growth, and the point that I made was that there's growing pains. We were talking about adding 50 houses in a development that could be 150 houses. There's a problem with some other issues, but just imagine that was on a different parcel of land and there weren't any questions with regard to some, what there are questions about. And I don't want to talk about that particular development because that's, set that aside. There are changes coming. there's a population that needs and will expect, and you talk about people looking at what we have to offer on the internet, and they'll be looking at Yelp, they'll be looking at what people think about who we are, and they'll be looking at Stillwater and Maplewood, Washington County. Washington County has trails everywhere, and people value them, and realtors will tell you that trails sell, and they maintain high property values. Trails are the person that told me this line, you won't believe this. Sheila Harsdorf told me that trails are an engine of economic development, and I believe her. And she said that when we couldn't put a trailhead at Wisconsin 35 going south to North Hudson, because the DOT had already designed it and made it an impossibility, and we tried so very hard to get that at that time. And she was really tremendous in that effort, but we just couldn't make it work. But that line has never left me. Trails are an engine of economic development, and they're not your highest priority, but they shouldn't be your lowest either.
I mean, just a personal reference, there's a small town in Minnesota about 15 miles from where I grew up, and I know we never would have visited it if they didn't have bike trails. And I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but to me this distributed expense over the 6-8 year period of construction is worth it in this case.
How about you, Scott? Do you know anybody who's in the building trades? Yeah. Jerry, go ahead.
The other thing we have to keep in mind as we build these trails is that about every 10 years we have to spend another, whatever it takes to put new overlay on the asphalt. That doesn't go away. As more of them happen, we're going to have some police on bicycles because people seem to want to do bad things when they're out of sight of the highway. And bad things happen on bicycle trails.
I heard you say that last time,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about that, but I'd invite you out to New Richmond, take a look at the paved trail that they put in out there about 18 years ago. They haven't touched it since, and it's in fine condition.
Yeah, I'm basing I don't ride on bicycle trails, I ride on the road, but a friend of mine is a very avid bicyclist, and he says 10 years and you're gonna have potholes in Wisconsin. He said you can't get around that. And that's his experience. I'm just going on his. So, you know, this is not something that we build and they come. This is something we build and they come, and then we rebuild, and then they come, and then we rebuild, and then we come. And I just wonder if you were to ask the cross-section of St. Croix County if they would like that. I'm not against it, but I think we have to be realistic. Building it is not the only expense. You know.
I'll give you that. There's absolute maintenance, but 10 years, a well-built bicycle trail is not the same asphalt as you put on a road. It's slightly different asphalt. Robbie will bear that out, I'm sure. But that trail in New Richmond it's there, and they haven't done major reconstruction on the thing in the last 18 years since they put it in, and it's in fine condition. They fill the cracks, sure. They've done a little bit on it, and we will end up doing that. We'll end up maintaining it because it's our trail. We'll have an argument about whether we should clear the snow. We'll have the bicycle people out there. You clear the snow, and we'll talk about it. But all those things will happen. But we'll have it, and it'll drive tourism. It'll be good for our community, and that's my 2 cents. And Scott, you're going to tell me what you think.
I'm very sympathetic towards the cost of the maintenance and the things to come, but I think also there has been organizations and stuff that do help with doing, you know, the actual physical maintenance of it. Well, definitely it's going to end up lining up with us, but as far as the cleanup and some of those things, there are friends of trails and different things that become involved, and I think they can definitely help curtail some of those costs. The other thing I look at with the trail systems is that right now we have the opportunity that, you know, if we're doing this, we're doing it before this is all built out. And once we get to a point where you get a build out, definitely is going to be, there's going to be cost limitations to even acquire property or things that we need to do to make this even happen. And so if we're going to do it, you're always better to do it on the front end versus wait until you absolutely need it, and then all of a sudden you end up with a lot more costs because that whole area has already been built out. And so to acquire property or easements or whatever it's going to take is going to be, it could become cost prohibitive at that point.
Okay, what do we need? You need a vote to say go ahead? Need a vote to go to the, what do
We'd
we?
be looking for a recommendation to the full county board to amend the budget, if that's what Sean wants.
Yeah, so
If
two
that's-
issues on the budget amendment, if that's the route you're going to go, and it sounds like at least 3/4 of you might. So the budget amendment needs to be in the form of a resolution taken to the county board, so it's not on tonight's agenda. So you can send a resolution next month, but it would hit the February county board. The bids are good through February 2nd. Yeah.
Well, we have an agenda item that says update and consideration. I think we could turn consideration into an action item, can't we?
No, I don't believe it's strong enough. It'd be a resolution to amend the budget.
All right.
So it's a little different. So I have some options for you. So one is, if Jason thinks he can get an extension on the bids, you can just take care of it at next month. Your alternative is, we ask Chairperson Cook to add it to next Tuesday's admin committee, because admin typically does budget amendments, although I think they can be derived from other committees if that's where the basis comes from. And I could add it to next week's and it would hit the January county board. So I think those are your two options. It's whichever path you want. By sending it to admin, though, you're asking 5 different people, okay, at least 4 different people, to take up the issue from different lenses than what you guys just looked at it. Why don't you answer your question, Sean?
I don't know. Even if we got the week extension we needed, I feel like if we, I mean, this is kind of outside of obviously where I operate, but I feel like as a contractor, like we need a week because it'll be reviewed at the county board meeting, like 2 days after your deadline or whatever. That. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would be an issue
Yeah.
either. I'm pretty sure they would probably grant the extension.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to review what options you had available to you. Yeah, the February county board is February 6th.
Okay, so
it's 4 days.
Yeah. Give us a week extension, like, yeah.
I would think we would be able to get that,
Think you'd be able to get that?
I would think.
Yeah.
Robbie's had experience working with this contractor, and he thought it would be reasonable, so.
The other alternative you would have is, Jason can ask for the extension, but you could always call a special Community
Special.
Development Committee meeting, vote on the budget amendment, and get it onto
Yeah.
the January county board.
So the way
I
we do
think
that is we
December
call a
25th
special.
and 6th are open on my schedule.
No, no, we wouldn't do that. When's the next, when is the next county board meeting?
January 2nd is the county board.
So could we have a special meeting? We could just plan everything, have it laid out. We have our special
yeah.
meeting 1/2 hour before the county board meeting. We vote on it. We don't have to do it a couple days ahead. We could have everything laid out. Is that right?
We've done that before. Yep, that's possible.
Would everybody be amenable to that? We don't have to have a vote on that. We just gave it a thumbs up. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, so basically it's a request for a future agenda item for a budget amendment resolution for $375,000 roughly.
And then we would put that on the county board agenda that day. All right,
Yes, we can make that happen.
thank you.
The county clerk hates it, but she's not here, so we'll do it.
All right, so I think we've accomplished what we need to do with that. And we can go back to our previous business item, which is to discuss the housing chapter of the comprehensive plan, business item number 5.
Mr. Chair, do you want to take it up tonight, or do you want to try to do it
Let me poll the committee.
January?
Is everybody awake? Would anybody like to put this off till January? Put it off till January. I could sit here till midnight, but you guys are, you know, Sean's a working man. Sean works a lot harder than I do. And so do you. All right, we're gonna put this off till January.
Yeah.
We'll reserve this until January.
We'll table till the January meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, no motion needed.
Yeah, we don't need a motion. We can do that informally. So that means that we're gonna talk about finance, which is the reason I came to this meeting.
We need a drum roll, I think, this time, whatever.
Yeah. Everybody got the finance report? It was supplemental? No, just me.
Yeah.
Well,
The report is
it
in the
was added
packet.
today.
This is through November. You know, next month, it'll be preliminary year-end. Numbers will probably be a little bit more important at that time. The main number I've been watching is the Register of Deeds feeds now. They're about 80% of target. So down, but it's actually coming back strong here at the end of the year. Yeah. Other than that, I was just going to ask if there was any other questions on the financial report.
Parks should be close to done
Yeah,
for the year.
Parks-
How are they looking?
Yeah, Parks we had looked at last month, and they were looking really good. And so Parks fees are at $451,000, which is $70,000 over budget. So that's a good thing on revenues. And compared to where we were last year at this time, we're at 401. Between now and the end of the year, last year we collected $7,000. So the bulk of the fees are in.
Every month, I hope somebody can catch you up on something, and you're just too good for that. Keep trying to invoke the spirit of Judy Ochterhoff, and it just doesn't happen. All right, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next business item isn't a business item, it's Community Development Department update.
I'm going to keep it nice and short. First of all, I would like to thank the Hudson Rotary Club. Yesterday morning, JR, our Parks Administrator, and I went there and we received a $500 grant for the Halloween at Homestead event from the Hudson Rotary. So very good, and that good organization seemed like. And then my other update is just on the Glen Hills project out there. So the Highway Department helped us complete the survey for the site. The soil test has been done. The sanitary system design is complete. Good news is there, we did find a location for a system, and it is a good system that will accommodate some growth in that park if we have, you know, more people using it and stuff. And that's all I have without going into the other future agenda items or the future meeting dates. We've got really 3 chapters left in the comprehensive plan amendment. And those 3 chapters, though, are the shorter chapters, and housing isn't real long either. So is the committee still thinking about having a work session in January? It'd be January 11th, and that would be besides our January 18th meeting. There is no public hearings for the January meeting because the one that we had tonight would go to February, and we don't have any new ones.
To do 3...
It'd be actually 4 chapters.
4 chapters. It might be better to do, what do you guys think? To do 2 chapters in a work session and 2 chapters in the committee meeting?
Maybe 3 in 1, because we have the committee meeting for,
With other business, 3 in 1, 3 in a work session and 1.
yeah.
That's 3 and 1.
Okay, sounds good.
So figure on the 11th.
Well,
Work session on the 11th.
work session.
I do too. And that would be at what time?
And at 5 o'clock.
5 PM. That makes sense. Very good.
And then so the committee knows, and that we will be publishing the open house for the comp plan amendment, which is February 8th. And that is from 5 to 7 PM as well. So you'll see that going out right after the first of the year here, so that there's 30 days notice on the open house. So.
Announcements and correspondence. Anybody have something to share for the good of the entire order? No, anything? Ken? Julie?
2 big grant checks were received this week. One for recycling and hazardous waste, and one for land and water conservation.
Really? Very nice.
Yes, so Tim's budget, it doesn't look real great right now, but in a couple weeks here, it'll be looking real good. So,
That's excellent. Good, that's excellent. Requests for future agenda items. Anybody? Sean?
Well, fun one. I want to look at what it would, and I know I've mentioned it in passing, but what it would actually, pros and cons, estimated costs, etc., for the Eckert Blufflands, just building the walking trail with the rope, with the suspension, with the rope bridges. Just so at least there's some paths to walk and hike and stuff. Yep.
Clarification item as far as you want a cost estimate. So there's 2 different branches. There's the north branch, which is in the hike-in camping. And then we have the south branch, prairie restoration area. We can piece it out so you can have a phased estimate, and then are you talking for the whole park?
Yeah, that sounds great. Just the trails for the whole park, and then I guess north side, south side.
Okay.
As far as separate. And I'm obviously not asking for like formal estimates, just
Thumbnail.
yes.
No other recreation, just walking trails.
Yes. Yes, with bridges. So the original like trail on the park plan, but just the trail.
Would you consider, because the staff is kind of busy with the comprehensive plan, would you consider asking for that after the comp plan is wrapped up?
Sure, we can do it in March.
Okay. Any other? Nope. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of keeping my powder dry too until the comp plan is wrapped up, and then I'll have a couple too, but let's just, I'm gonna wait. So, date of the next meeting is January 11 for a work session, Thursday, January 18 for, just before the county board meeting. We have a special meeting, which is January
2nd, January 2nd, 4:30
January
PM.
2nd at 4:30 PM, we'll have a special meeting. Then January 11th, then January 18, be there or be square. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.